Welcome to Reflections, a program where we discuss values and virtues for the transformation of the individual and the society in general. And I am Father George Ehusani. I have with me once again in the studio Mr. Victor Adejor. Mr. Adejor is the chairman of the Nigerian Psychological Association FCT chapter, right? You're welcome to the studio.
Thank you, Father. It's nice to be here. Good day, viewers.
Thank you very much. The month of September, we celebrate World Suicide Prevention Day. Precisely September 10, we celebrate Suicide Prevention Day. Now, I call you to the studio for us to discuss what's going on. There appears to be, from what I hear in the news, appears to be an upsurge in the number of people resorting to suicide. And there are many problems. People are facing incredibly hard times. People are getting frustrated. They are getting to despair, to the level of despair. Many are giving up, which is why somebody can think of taking her own life or his own life. You have incidents of people jumping into the lagoon in Lagos. You have people climbing masts, mobile phone masts. You have people who jump into whatever, people hanging themselves. And it's like, this is a new phenomenon in our society. Africans love life and would rather have managed with hardship than take their own lives. It's an extreme measure. What's going on? Why are we seeing what appears to be an upsurge? I mean, when I was a child, I think in my first 21 years in my life, I didn't hear of somebody taking his own life. But now a 5, 6, 7, 10-year-old is hearing of people taking his own life every other day. What's going on?
Thank you, Father. And it's really good that you have brought this issue to the burning, the front burner of our society. There are a plethora of challenges and complexities that are associated with suicide. And right now, you cannot just pinpoint one issue to say this is the main reason why we're having suicide. So we have mental health issues. Mental health issues have increased post-COVID-19. A lot of people are having issues around depression. Depression, anxiety disorder are clear mental health issues that really push individuals.
So one is depression.
Yes, depression is really key. Individuals' inability to share their pains, individuals' inability to cope with the rising economic challenges could cause depression. And because for men mostly, they are not willing to express their vulnerability. So men feel they are too strong, men don't cry, men should endure pains and hard times.
Is it that they feel they are too strong or they pretend to be very strong?
Well, again, the way culture has defined man has put man in a position where they continue to think that they should not be vulnerable. And vulnerability is a way of, making yourself understand your reality, accepting your reality, and sharing and being open to share your reality without fear of being stigmatized. Anxiety, depression. Everyone is anxious right now in Nigeria, given all the complexities from economic to social issues that are currently in the country. We have family, religious perspectives as well, deepening how individuals continue to lose self-esteem, self-confidence to be able to rise up and face the challenges and demands of this time. And so yes, suicide is on the increase for many reasons, that people have become helpless, hopeless, and are unable to confront the realities of this time. And so I would say that, we've seen recently more men. Again, not just men. I'm sure there are a lot of undocumented issues of suicide, currently in Nigeria that is not reported. Suicides from drowning, suicides from taking pesticides, food poisoning. All these are realities of the hard times telling on citizens.
Is it just the hard time? I know, the hard times are really hard. But is there a new phenomenon whereby people really don't value life? Because we hear stories. Times have been hard before in our society. Times have been hard. People, they have had drought, they have had famine, they have had situations that are really tough. We have had wars and so on and so forth. Times have been hard. Why does it appear that it's so easy for people to decide to terminate their life? Is it a lack of regard for life?
Not necessarily, Father. You know, for us in Africa and especially in Nigeria, we live we live in a communal way. Family structures have broken down.
Aha.
Rather than collaborate, we're seeing competition among family members. We're seeing labeling. We're seeing competition within the family. I mean, you know, the tendency to begin to compare yourself, you know, your child with one person in another family are all issues that are rising from the current breakdown in our family system.
Let me see. Victor, you're actually delving into two different things now. One is the whole issue of societal pressure.
Sure.
So you are saying there is a lot of pressure even from the family.
Yes. The family, the community, the church also play roles in the way that individuals begin to see themselves. So a sense of worthlessness, giving economic challenges, and again, I mean, Father, it is very clear to us. Look at the number of people losing their jobs. Look at the number of businesses failing. There's a lot of cry in the country as a result of challenges emanating from economic issues. Or, I mean, we've been asked to tie our belts, we've been asked to sit up, we've been asked to be patient.
So the economic problems, the critical economic problems we're in now, near destitution of many. I mean, the middle class has been wiped off completely. You have a few rich people, and maybe 90% of Nigerians are living in deplorable poverty, dehumanizing poverty. So you mean it is pushing some people in the extreme, pushing some people to suicide?
Deeply pushing people to suicide. But again, is the fact that we have, you know, in a way stigmatized mental health issues. Mental health issues result from one's inability to manage some of these challenges we have enumerated. And so people begin to withdraw into themselves, thereby leading to depression.
Because can we then say
Yes.
that the policies of government are killing people?
Potentially, yes, we can say that policies elicit the pains that we are going through. And over time, we've continued to hear the call from the government to citizens to hold on fast. That, I mean, these challenges, I mean, they even acknowledge that there's a challenge. So acknowledging these challenges without putting measures in place, again, there are measures in place that may not seem enough. So for instance, we talk of social economic issues. Right now, rice is being sold with a caveat that you must use, I mean, I read recently. Again, hunger is one of the key causes of, you know, suicide. Your inability to think of where your next meal is coming from creates anxiety. And that anxiety could lead you into deep level of stress, fear, to a point of you wanting to take your life because your next meal is not guaranteed. So for instance, now rice is available at 40,000 naira. Again, for you to access this rice, you need your NIN. Rice has all, yes,
NIN.
Yes, you need your NIN to access rice. That's what I just read recently. Again, you're talking about hunger. The question is, how are we able as a community, as families, to provide support for ourselves? The disintegration in families and in communities have led to individualized, well, has broken down collectivism, I would say, which is part of our tradition.
So I am concerned about the social injustices, the structural evils in our society that have pushed people to begin to engage in suicide ideation, to think of killing themselves. At the end of the day, if an individual hangs himself, kills himself, then some of us are responsible to some extent. We are able to say, we should be able to say that some of us are responsible. I mean, those who are responsible for bad policies, those who are responsible for unjust policies, those who are living large at the expense of the poor. Can't we say that if they earn money, then it means some of that money is blood money, if people die as a result of those their policies?
Well, Father, to a large extent, I would say you are right. And reflecting on the words you are just, putting forth, there are people who commit suicides in very quiet places. There are others who bring it to the public. And before they commit suicide, especially for those who have drowned themselves and those who have attempted to join from various heights, they say what their issues are.
Some write notes.
And others write notes. Now, for all those that are linked to helplessness resulting from economic issues, we cannot separate government policies from such suicide attempts. Again, how much access are people having for mental health care? How much access are government's poverty alleviation, interventions reaching those who truly need it?
Well, that one is another chapter. I mean, we only hear that there are palliatives and that the government is distributing palliative, but the Nigerian government is the worst in terms of reaching people. I mean, I have friends in the US. During COVID-19, my friends said that they fed on the food that was being served for school children, which were now delivered at their doorsteps. Food meant for school, meaning food, pastries, fruits, and so on, that were meant to be served at school. But because the children couldn't go to school, there were delivery vans that were delivering at the doorsteps of every house where there is a school child. They delivered those food. My friend told me that that's what the whole family fed on throughout the COVID time.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know anybody who has benefited from the palliatives that the governments keep talking about. I don't personally know anybody around me. And I have numerous poor people around me. So, the Nigerian government system is perhaps the worst when it comes to reaching the poorest of the poor. Because you keep hearing of this rice meant for the poor that does not get to the poorest of the poor.
Yeah.
You hear of monies that are meant to be distributed to the poor, it never gets to the poor. So actually what the Nigerian poor wanted was something like subsidized fuel for us. And that is the last thing you have taken away. So the Nigerian poor is perhaps the poorest in the world, in the sense that you go to many villages in this country. I was in Delta State not long ago. And you see places that there is no government presence at all. Go to our state, Kogi State. Go to any state and you see vast parts of the state that there is no evidence that there is government. So the people are completely on their own. Then in August, people came out to protest.
Yeah.
And many of those poor people that came out to protest are now in detention. That people who were protesting hunger, they were actually crying, Abin power, we are hungry. And then some of them are being charged for treason, treasonable felony. People who had no gun, no knife, nothing. They only came out to protest that they are hungry. Then many of them are being detained right now without bail. They are being detained for treasonable felony. Isn't this a crime against the poor?
So I am doing my best not to be tempted to wear my activism cap on these shoots, and I bet.
No, you are here both as a psychologist and as an activist.
So Father, statistics, recent research by Iwaleye Temi indicates that 90.50% out of 100,000 Nigerians commit suicide or have the tendency to commit suicide. And Nigeria is one of the top 3 leading in suicides. I mean, recently. We never were at this point, just as you have said. Recently, you heard about the man who went on the mast and who was arrested by the police for attempting to commit suicide.
Is it still in our law books that attempted suicide is a crime?
It's still very much in our law book, and if I'm not mistaken, the Act, Section 312, also still says that once you attempt suicide, you will be liable to
Wait a minute. What about the Mental Health Act of 2021? You mean it did not remove that?
So implementation of that act has not taken roots effectively. And by this I mean that there's a low awareness, there is an implementation gap. I am even very sure that orientation around that act
Has
for
not
police
taken place.
Has also not taken place. And I also seize this opportunity to say that the psychology bill is still waiting government's assent to increase psychological intervention in Nigeria. And we continue to make appeal to the president and the presidency to ensure that they pay attention to this bill so that we will have an organized way of providing reach for those who suffer this issue. Again, we thank you for creating awareness and education through this kind of conversation. But the reality is the fact that we have very few professionals who will be able to provide and meet the demands of people who are having mental health challenges. Again, we've talked about right-based approach. There's a right to food. Implementing some of these right to food act, implementing some of these acts takes a lot of awareness. Government, again, has its own issues. I was going to give an example of a private sector actor who is able to collect data of poor people. I've been saying on TV how they collected data and their intervention is reaching the people who are really in need. Why is government not able to do this? And it's clear. Weak data, our ability to take genuine data and capture those who are really in need is a problem. Favoritism, tribalism, regionalism all play a role. Corruption is also core. So I speak clearly about people who are helpless, and at this time is increasing. We saw the signs coming from last year or prior to the coming of this administration, where people were pulling off their clothes in the banks, showing helplessness on the street. These are signs that we have seen coming. But government hasn't made deliberate efforts to create awareness around mental health issues. Again, I will speak about the number of psychologists to, the number of people who are having health issues. The last assembly noted that over 40 million Nigerians are having or facing mental health challenges. Nobody spoke about potential intervention, potential access, and that number, I can tell you today,
has increased.
Has definitely increased.
No. There's some figure I saw somewhere that says that perhaps 40% of Nigerians, not 40 million Nigerians, 40% of Nigerians, you are going towards 90 million.
So
40% of Nigerians are on the borderline of mental health breakdown. And things are getting harder every day. So this number may increase. And if you have a population where nearly 40% are at the risk of major mental health breakdown, whether it is, and then it is compounded by drug abuse.
So I am happy you mentioned drug abuse, but I also mentioned two key factors. I've talked about culture. I'm also going to speak about religion in a way. So we mystify mental health issues. And because we believe that everything goes to God in prayers, people are not willing to openly admit that these are the challenges we face. And there is a call for Christian men, Christian women to provide support for themselves.
Well, Victor, I hope you know that is why we, Terra, set up the Psycho-Spiritual Institute of Psycho-Spiritual Institute of Terra Leadership Foundation.
Sure.
And just a few days ago, NUC visited us for accreditation.
Awesome.
So we are in the process of being accredited for postgraduate diploma and master's degree in psycho-spiritual trauma healing and psycho-spiritual therapy.
Awesome.
Because we recognize it, we have recognized it long ago. That's why the institute has been existing for 11 years. We recognize that religion, and since our people are very religious resources need to be combined with psychotherapeutic resources to bring comprehensive healing to people who are hurting.
Awesome.
Unfortunately, the point you are trying to make, that many religious leaders don't see this link.
Sure.
Instead, many religious leaders actually abuse people who are hurting, exploit people who are hurting. And every day you see on social media, you see on TV, I think at some point NBC had to ban this so-called deliverance on TV.
Sure.
You see people who are on the borderline. You see them being exploited by so-called men of God or women of God. But this person is sick. This person needs attention. This person needs help. That is why we brought out our initiative called psycho-spiritual healing. So the pastor needs to be given exposure, a measure of psychotherapeutic exposure. Whether it is our 1 week psychotrauma healing or 1 year diploma in psychotrauma, whatever, just expose religious leaders, imams, pastors to basic knowledge of the skills for caring for people, because there is a thin line between sanity and insanity.
Sure.
Sure. And it's actually a spectrum.
Yes.
And many of the people we have in our churches, many of the people we have in our mosques are hovering between sanity and insanity.
Sure. And because these conversations, if not well managed, bring about stigma, people tend to withdraw.
Now, which is why it is a good thing if the imam has exposure to this. So, because it is so much easier for somebody to say, I am going to see my imam, or to say, I'm going to see my pastor, than to say, I am going to see my clinical psychologist. Until we destroy the stigma, I see the imam and the pastor coming in between.
Yes.
So, but then if the imam and the pastor, if they are ignorant of psychotherapeutic approaches, then they cannot help.
Which is why the educational awareness needs to continue. They need to understand where the limits stop. You see a person needing prayers and you cannot understand the level of conversation the person is doing. You begin to refer. So I am inviting all professionals who have the skills for therapy, for counseling, to avail themselves in their community, in their worship centers, to support spiritual leaders, to support community leaders. Because
and there are groups right now, I don't know if you know of Mashi. I mean, a group put together by Professor Hope Egaga. And there are numerous psychologists and counselors that are in that group. I think we are now hundreds in that group that are available, with people in different parts of this country and even overseas, available to support people. And then whenever there is any threat, suicide ideation, there is somebody in our group that is saying, oh, where are you? Worry? Okay, call this person. Sure. Where are you? Kano? Call this person. So that is happening, and there are, apart from Mashi, our group, there are other groups that are available like that. So, but your call is very important.
I want to quickly say two things. There are workplace-induced suicide potentials, and not many people are paying attention to it.
Workplace?
Yes, workplace. People suffer burnout. People suffer frustration. So, for instance, many people have not had their salaries increased, and they are still putting the same efforts and potentially even double the efforts while facing some of these economic challenges.
In your state, people were earning 20% salary, and they were still expected to go to work.
I'm not sure if that is still happening, but in the past...
No, I think they say it has improved.
Awesome. So, it has happened in the past. A lot of people have lost their lives, majorly pensioners in the past. There's a real need for us to sit down and have conversation. I'll make available to you as well a recent research on distress and substance abuse among smallholder farmers. This affects their well-being. This research has been conducted, and it has proven and shown that farmers who are responsible for food security and addressing the hunger gap suffer depression, anxiety, stress.
Why?
Largely because of lack of access to input, lack of access to land, lack of access to security.
Yeah, because of insecurity.
Lack of access to effective productivity. Climate change is also affecting them. So a person puts a seed on the ground, waits for a few months, and nothing comes out. So quietly, nobody. And I can say we are losing people to distress. Now, amongst farmers' communities, a lot of them have to take substances to have the ability to deliver on production. Now, why the production element of the value chain is weakened, our young people are no more taken to the lands. And those who have to do that have to take substance, including men, including women. It's prevalent, it's underreported. Again, sometimes when people are delusional, they take their life even without knowing. When people...
And to bring this discussion to a close,
yes,
what about the very young people? The very young people who seem to be losing a sense of meaning in life.
Yes.
And people are learning how to kill themselves from social media. How do we, what do you have to, just a word to parents and teachers on raising young people with a sense of meaning so that young people will not go to these extremes, especially young people who are not pushed by poverty, but young people who have lived their life too much on social media, where they now learn all kinds of stupid things, including to take their own life.
So I'll say three things, Father. One is trust. We need to build trust within family setting, within school setting. We need to develop empathy. We need to look at people's action and empathize with them in a way that we're able to build dialogue, build conversation. And then finally, compassion. We need to treat ourselves at these trying times with compassion. Many people act in manners that they cannot explain. And because most times they have people who are not professionals around them, nobody seems to understand. A person could be wanting to speak to you, but the lack of trust, the lack of confidence and confidentiality becomes an issue. So I invite all of us in our worship centers, in our communities, in our families, in our homes, to show compassion to one another, to be empathetic,
to make yourself amenable to being trusted.
Exactly, make yourself available to be trusted. It means you have to be authentic. Yes. You know, I hear a lot of gist about a lot of fake people in Abuja living borrowed lives. We need to be more authentic as human beings at this time.
It is on that note we'll be bringing this discussion to an end. I've been speaking to Mr. Victor Adejor, who is the chairman, Nigerian Psychological Association, FCT chapter. And his conclusion is, look, we can reduce this incidence of suicide and suicide ideation if we are more compassionate with one another. If we look into our family structures that are collapsing, to stop this collapse, this disintegration of our family structure, we need to become more of the communities that we used to be so that we can support one another, whether it is in the working place or at home. Make yourself available to being approached by people who are hurting so that they will not destroy themselves. For every life that is destroyed through suicide, I think the rest of us need to take some responsibility. We have failed somewhere. Of course, government has failed big time, pushing people into abject poverty. But the rest of us can support people so that they do not take their lives. God bless you.
Thank you.
Bless
Thank you,
Thank
Father.
you very much. Thank you.